Welcome to Real Health with me, Karl Henry. Folks, why have busy and wrecked become such commonplace words nowadays? Is exhaustion just a feature of modern life? Or is there something we can do about it? In his new book, Busy and Wrecked, comedian, podcaster, meditation teacher and author Dermot Whelan dives into how to create space and time for people and things that really matter. Dermot, welcome back to Real Health.
Thanks so much for having me back.
I love when you walk into a room or a studio, you just... It's just calm. Lovely. You bring a calmness with you.
It's in my bright red jumper, maybe just sort of making people blink a little bit more.
You just bring a lovely sense of calm into a room.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I wasn't always like that.
No.
I would have been very fidgety, sweaty. This kind of thing now would have absolutely terrified me. So I would have been blathering a lot, trying to fill all the spaces.
Even as a radio presenter?
I guess radio presenting gave me a space where it's okay to blather and fill space because that's literally your job. But yeah, I mean, when I started off, God, I remember I had a job reading the news. That was my first job.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. And I remember a few weeks into it, I started to read the news and my throat started closing up. And I was like, at 6 o'clock, here are the headlines. And it started to sound like, I don't know, a mixture between Yoda and Podge and Raj. But I didn't know what was happening. And years later, I learned that one of the symptoms of anxiety is that your throat can close up or feel like it's closing up. So, yeah, that was kind of one of the early indicators. So things have changed a lot for me over the years. And
does that come with age, that sense of age, and obviously the stuff that we're going to talk about in terms of meditation and all the work that you do there and breathing, but has that come with age as well, a sense of acceptance and a sense of this is who I am?
I think so, but I know it can work in reverse for other people. I know a lot of performers, actors. I was only having a conversation with one recently who said their anxiety was getting worse as they got older, and so they were going to have to actually just stop acting, which is kind of sad. So I guess for me, yeah, I suppose you have the potential to chill out a little bit as you get older. But I guess the gift of self-awareness, which sounds quite fluffy, but really learning about my nervous system, how I react to stress, things that stress me out, habits that I can take on to help me to navigate stress a bit better or experience less of it. And enjoying good stress. Those are all, I think, put you a little bit ease. They're all things that have helped me, I guess, walk into a potentially stressful environment like this and feel quite calm. But I don't want no stress.
Stress is a good thing.
It is, and I think that's one of the common misperceptions about it. Is misconception?
Misconception, yeah.
Is that all stress is bad, and if you're experiencing any of it, it's just wholly negative. But no, I mean, for instance, right now I want a little bit of fizz in my belly, as I call it, because that's going to help me to think a little bit quicker. And
well, it helps us to perform.
Absolutely, and you know all about that in the world of fitness. I mean, the people you coach and train rely on that stress response. They need it. They just don't need it 7 hours later when they're trying to get a kip.
Right? Yeah, in this situation, like my own personality is a lot calmer. I perform because I'm stressed, where my energy levels rise a little bit. I mean, I'll hide it, but the swan analogy, right, where it's like, yeah. But that comes from the stress of on the way up, a stressful situation. 5 or 6 guests coming into the studio, it's good.
It is, yeah. And people, I guess, always asked me, when I worked in radio, they always say, how are you guys always so relaxed in the studio? And like you say, you're never truly relaxed. You're a heightened version of yourself, I think, in a radio studio, in particular, with our kind of show. So there is a little bit of stress there, but it's that positive one that's kind of giving you a little boost,
Busy and wrecked. You asked me how I was earlier when you came myself busy and wrecked.
Well, I don't know if you've noticed, but it's our national pastime to tell each other how busy we are.
I know, isn't it? Yeah, it is. That's an Irish thing, isn't it? It's like, how's it going? Busy. So busy. I couldn't be busier.
Well, you know what? I think it's global. I don't think we were always like that. In the early 70s, they reckon things changed in America for the first time in history. The top 10% of society started working longer hours than the bottom 10%. That never happened before. It was always the wealthier, more successful you were, less you worked. Other people did your jobs. And, you know, early 70s in Ireland, we were protesting outside Leinster House in our thousands about the reduction in the drink drive limit to 12 pints. So that's where our priorities were in the early 70s. You know, we were rattling the gates about the 12-pint limit, going, what is this, Tuesday? This is unacceptable. But I think we, you know, over the years we caught up with our American friends, and I think the whole world. I was giving a talk recently in Prague, and I was interested to see would the busy thing resonate with everybody there, and it absolutely did. It's a global thing where science backs it up as well. We are unconsciously infusing all our conversations with signals of busyness and signals of lack of time for personal time. And by doing this, we elevate our social status. So if I say to you, "Hey, how you doing? Geez, you're doing well. You're really busy at the moment, aren't you?" You go, "Yeah." I have signaled to you that I believe you have high social status, and you have confirmed that and saying, "Yes, I in fact, you're right. I am very busy. I haven't seen my kids in 3.5 weeks. I'm so successful." And there's a load of research from Columbia Business School in the States. There's a woman called Sylvia Bellezzo who's done a lot of research on that, particularly over the last 15 years or so. And that's what they found. We are subconsciously or unconsciously signaling busyness and a lack of personal time to each other in order to elevate our position in society. And that's kind of weird, you know, because you're basically saying, you know, this is where it doesn't sit well with us if you notice. We tend to throw in the phrase good busy quite a bit.
What is good busy?
This is what I wrote the book about. Pretty much it's the search for a good busy. Does it exist? Or is it just an excuse that we throw in at the end of a conversation? Because this is generally how it works. We go, "How are you getting on?" "Wow, crazy busy, mad busy, loads on at the moment. Jeez, I'm running around like a blue arse fly. But, you know, good busy. You know, and that's our way of saying, things are slightly unhinged. My time management may be not the world's greatest, but I've chosen all these things. They're a sign of success and high social status. So I guess it must be good busy. And we both go, yeah, sounds great.
Is it a sign that we're slightly dysregulated, but we're kind of telling ourselves it's all right?
I believe it is. If you find yourself talking about how busy you are and then sort of papering over the cracks with the phrase good busy, it sometimes can be our attempt to justify and to try and make sense almost of why we are the way we are. And the issue with good busy is that a lot of the time good busy lives just below chronic stress, where, you know, I have a record player at home, and if I crank the volume or the gain too much, the needle goes into the red. So we may live our lives with the needle sort of just below the red, and good busy can live there, where we feel like, you know, loads on, pace is a bit more than I'd like, but I think I'm kind of keeping it together, even if people around me are starting to lose their shit a little bit. But the problem with good busy is it doesn't take too much for the needle to be put into the red. So maybe suddenly extra workload, health challenge. I'm caring for someone now that I wasn't caring for before. And next thing we know, we're in bad busy. And that transition can happen very quickly. And that's when we have those periods in our life when we go, "Oh my God, what happened? Everything seemed to be okay, and now I can't seem to keep it together, and getting out of bed is difficult, and I just feel like if someone asks me another question, my head's going to explode."
That's the fizzy bottle analogy, isn't it? Where the fizz you up on top.
Yeah. And I think, you know, the book is busy and wrecked because they're the two words that I've heard the most since I became a meditation teacher back in 2018. They're in the conversations I have with people after, you know, a class, I think, geez, I know, I'm just so busy and wrecked at the moment. And it doesn't matter who you are. It's students in school, it's, you know, high-powered CEOs, it's, you know, stay-at-home parents, it's retired people. Everybody's feeling it, you know. And I think just to go back to that, you know, that shift we were talking about in terms of the way the world is, the world is set up at the moment in a way that our nervous systems have never had to handle that before, as you know yourself, and the demands on it, you know, a lot of our overwhelm isn't actually our fault. So a lot of it is just the way the world is, and the constant admin that we're having from tools that are supposed to be freeing our time up. They're just giving us more work, so.
And of course, you had that moment of realization with regards to your afternoon naps, didn't you?
Yeah, in 2017, I was sleeping in my car a lot.
I've done that, by the way.
Yeah. Not due to any domestic dispute. I hadn't played that one round of golf too many that I found myself in the back of a Hyundai estate. But, catching a quick nap, like you say, if you've a long, busy day, early start, late finish, that can be quite a healthy moment of self-care right there. A little recharge, disco naps, they go a long way. If you're doing it almost every day, then there's probably an issue. And that's where I found myself, because I was busy and wrecked. I had learned to meditate, but I had let it go. I was sort of codding myself that I was doing it. And the upshot of that was the stress in my life came back. A lot of the anxiety that I had managed to, navigate quite well with the meditation started to come back. And as we know, if you're in full fight or flight mode all the time, if you're running around like that blue arse fly, it's exhausting. It really is. If you're in emergency mode all the time, if your needle is in the red, it's really tiring. So I would have to get a sleep for about 40 minutes if I was going to meet somebody after the radio show, And I went to the psychologist, a psychologist at the time, as it was recommended to me, because clearly I needed some intervention. And I remember being quite proud the day I went into him. He's like, how are you doing? I was like, do you know what? I was nervous about this, but I'm actually doing well. I just slept for an hour in my car around the corner. And he's like, that's not normal. You should be able to have a conversation like this without getting an hour's kip. So let's look at that, shall we? And when we did dig into it, it was the fact that I was saying yes to every bit of work that was offered to me, that I hadn't taken any space in my day or life to ask questions like, who am I? And what do I want? And what am I ready to let go of that's not really working for me anymore?
Have we got better at that as a society, of seeing psychologists, therapists talk as part of the solution to busy and wrecked, that to talking it out a bit better? Has it become a bit more normal?
I'd like to think so, but I still think it's not as accessible as it could be for everybody. Yes, there are free therapy. There is some availability to free therapy, but it's not as widespread as it could be. So sometimes it is maybe the privilege of the more well-to-do. But yeah, I think, I had a conversation with the two Johnnies about therapy. I mean, if that's a great signal of, that particularly young men are open to the idea of at least talking to somebody. Sometimes a stranger who doesn't have any emotional investment in you, doesn't know you all your life.
Powerful. I've done it. I've no, I found it very powerful. It's that idea the person doesn't know you, and you can just talk freely about it, and then they kind of put it back together in somewhat organized, or they prod.
Yeah, I think it's different for everybody, but I think there's a lot going on. The idea of, for me, I enjoy talking to someone who's not emotionally invested in me, who doesn't have that history of knowing me since I was 10, and they haven't they don't have any preconceived notions about me because they didn't know me that well, so they can look at me kind of clinically. The very act of talking to a person out loud, even talking to a lampshade, is probably beneficial, that you're processing your information and experience and feelings as you're saying them out loud, and I think that's helpful. But having said that, talk therapy is not for everybody. Some people just don't get anything from it. They're just not wired that way. So, but I would recommend that everybody would at least at some point try it out and see if it is for you. I always liken it to just opening the bonnet of your car and having a look and seeing how your own particular mental engine works, and that information's got to be helpful.
In the book, how did you compile the confessions of the busy and wrecked at the start of each chapter?
Oh, I put out a questionnaire to all my subscribers to my website, dermotwhelan.com, just to see I wanted to really make sure that when I was writing the book that I was covering the areas of stress and busyness and overwhelm that were really affecting, the people who were engaging with my stuff. So, and then I just, as one of those questions, I asked them, have you ever done something silly or funny as a result of being Busy and Wrecked. And I was roaring laughing when I got them. And sometimes they're kind of, there's pathos in there, but there's a lot of people putting weird things in the fridge that shouldn't go in the fridge.
Okay.
Like because I put one at the top of every chapter, and there's only, a certain amount of chapters in the book, so I couldn't use them all. But there's car keys, dogs' dinners, phones. There's all kinds of stuff going into the fridge.
Well, like petrol in the diesel car is another one, isn't it? Or diesel in the petrol car or whatever.
But forgetting where you parked your car.
Oh, yeah.
That's so many people doing that. People walking to the wrong office where they used to work.
Oh, yeah.
Like turning up the wrong building, dropping kids off at schools they don't go to anymore, trying to collect them from schools they don't go to. And, even though it's so funny, you really almost...
It's worrying, though, too, isn't it?
Well, if you feel... I just felt such compassion for everybody and you realise we're all in the same boat. People are doing mad stuff. Like driving the wrong way to places is really popular as well. Forgetting where they're going and driving past their house and all kinds of things. But you just get that sense that, look, we're all in this weird life soup at the moment and we're just doing our best. And people are doing silly things and forgetting stuff. And that's just the way the world is, and we're all doing our best to muddle through.
Tell me about the morning run and the word Akasha.
Yeah, that's a word that came to me during a run. I don't know if you ever had a weird or spiritual experience in the middle of exercise, have you?
Several. Yeah, actually, some of my best stuff comes to me when I move or when I train, be it running or swimming or cycling or whatever. It doesn't really matter.
In terms of ideas.
Yeah, but also in terms of moments of maybe reflection
insight
or insight. Yeah, insight's probably quite a good word. Like if I do when I go do really long swims, it's you and the big ocean.
Yeah.
And there's nothing else. And it forces you to really control your mind and where it goes, but it goes to really odd places. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I'd love to be a good swimmer.
Practice.
So bad at swimming. I never got proper lessons beyond the age of 7. You know the way you do lessons for your kids, and that was it. My biggest issue is I can't swim in a straight line. Anytime I go, okay, I'm going to do a length, I go great guns for about 5 or 6 seconds, and then I end up tangled up in that beady thing.
The lane divider.
The lane divider, As I go, okay, I'm just going to breaststroke with my eyes open then. But yeah, I was out for a run one morning and I began to just say this word out loud that was coming from somewhere. And the word was Akasha. And I'd never heard it before. I was like, Akasha. And it was kind of in the rhythm of my running. And then I found myself kind of gently pounding my chest as I was saying it. It was like...
It's like Matthew McConaughey in Wolf of Wall Street.
not a million miles from that, yeah. All right. But it was almost like I was a frustrated teacher who was trying to drum this information into the student, which I was also, Akasha. So I got home and I was saying it to Karina, and then I went, well, I'll just Google it and see if it's actually a word. And sure enough, it is a word, and it's a very ancient word, and it appears across so many different religions, Buddhism and Hinduism, even paganism. And this word, Akasha, and it means space, it means ether, it means the space that holds notes, the space between the notes in music, the space between the stars, planets, the sky. And I guess from that moment on, I thought, you know what, I might as well take this on board and see if this is some kind of a little gentle message from somewhere in the universe telling me that maybe I need to take more space, create more space, understand space a little bit more. And essentially, Busy and Wrecked is a book about space with Akasha at the heart of it, because sometimes I think we can outsource our recovery to some 2 weeks in Spain in the summer. Or, I'm absolutely exhausted now, but I'm going to go on a long weekend with the lads in 3 months. You're like, that is not recovery. What I've learned...
They're plasters, though, aren't they, really? In terms of stuff like that. Like, they're plasters on a problem. You're not addressing the
but I mean,
root of it.
There's a holiday is good, but we need to cultivate a better relationship with space. And these are little moments of space in your day. And it could be the length of one conscious breath. But I realized that the better the connection with those little moments of space that I could create, the more space I felt like I had in my day. And as a result, in my week. And then in my life, you know, and I realized that I was starting to prioritize things a little bit better in terms of, you know, family and friends. And there was a bit more balance creeping back in. And I was starting to say no to things that I realized because I'd created the space to go, is that thing really right for me right now? Or what's important to me these days? Not 5 years ago or 2 years ago or even last year, now. And once we start to create the space for those things don't seem as hectic. And it's almost as if you're putting on space goggles and you start to see these little pockets of space in your day that you might have missed before, you know. And that's powerful because in a way, that's what I discovered good busy is. Good busy is not, you know, I'm not a believer in you just suddenly take every afternoon off or suddenly work part-time. It's not realistic, you know, and I hate books that just tell me to manage my time better, you know. I need to make sure that I don't need other ways of cramming more things into my schedule. What if all those things or half of those things in my schedule aren't things I should be doing in the first place, you know? So
it's taking on the yes culture with prioritizing yourself and saying no to certain things, which in turn creates the space.
Yeah, and, you know, the book, I guess, explains that a lot of our busyness and overwhelm isn't our fault. It is the way the world is set up. But also there are behaviours that can exacerbate our busyness and a sense of overwhelm. You know, am I people-pleasing? Am I saying yes to things that I could be saying no to? Am I prioritising other people over myself? Am I focusing on the right things? Am I fooling myself about how productive I am? Am I losing myself in to-do lists of, you know, endless admin items when I'm actually ignoring the one or two things that I could be focusing my time on, you know? So is that we can all engage in that productivity theatre as well a little bit, or we kind of demonstrate that we're being productive, but we're actually focused on the wrong things. So, I guess in the book, I give people my 10 tools of space, which are just a ways of reframing your life and actually seeing space where you haven't seen it before, like I said. And that can be really transformational. So as I was saying, like, good busy is having lots to do. You know, I'm still excited. I'm the kind of person who likes doing different things and lots of things. But I'm able to do those things. And good busy is doing all that exciting stuff, but still having time, energy, and space for the people and things that matter the most. Because, you know, on our deathbed, we will not be saying, I wish I'd crammed more stuff into my schedule. I wish I'd fit in a few more Teams meetings. No, you're going to say, okay, maybe I had a lot on, you know, and I was doing my best to work as hard as I could to put food on the table. But those moments when I was with the people I cared about the most, how was I then? You know, and there are some people listening to this who have 2 jobs or possibly more, who have to be out of the house and away from their loved ones more than they would like to be. But we always have the choice of when we're with them, how are we? Can we do things that will help us to be a little bit more present, a little bit more patient? When I'm at home, am I just barreling through the front door and giving out about the school bag in the hall and the dishwasher not being closed properly and the dirty dish in the sink? Or am I actually sitting down and going, so, how was your day? Tell me what's going on. And I want to listen to hear what you're saying, you know.
It's about being present.
It is.
Yeah.
And that can sound a little bit simplistic a lot of the time, but if we're walking around in that good, busy, high-stress state a lot of the time, we're actually not capable of being present. And how that manifests is that we feel grumpier than we'd like to be. And maybe we're not sleeping great, you know, and we're walking around just rabbiting on to everybody about how busy we are, you know, and we sound to ourselves like we're a broken record. And we're like, why am I so busy? What's happening? You know? And what happens is when we feel like the wheels are coming off a bit, we then give out to ourselves even more. It's like, what the hell's wrong with me? Why can't I keep it together? I used to be able to handle all this stuff. Why am I so grumpy? Oh my God, listen to me. So, to be able to just introduce some techniques, a different perspective, and really simple, everyday techniques that don't take half the morning, they literally take a few seconds, we can start to just move into that present moment a little bit more, see the space that we've been missing. And life is a little bit more enjoyable. And we're not going around telling everyone I'm mad busy, flat out, up the walls, chasing my tail, out the door, around the twist.
I found I downloaded an app for my phone called doesn't make a difference. Freedom is the name of the app, but I can lock apps, and I found with that the space is created. It's huge because I lock Instagram, and I can't open it. There's a setting where you can override it, but actually I've turned that setting off. So now I lock Instagram for, it could be 6 hours.
Isn't that mad? That's where
I'm at.
Well, no, as humans, that's where we are. Like, and it also speaks to the power of these apps.
Oh, huge.
And the professionalism of the psychologists who help build them.
Huge. So I bought an app to turn off the other apps, but I control that. So I make a decision, say, of an evening. Okay, I'm going to knock it off now at, say, 6. And I can set the time. It'll turn back on like maybe 7 tomorrow morning. And the space that creates to do stuff, which is one, to interact better, to be a better parent, a better partner, a better friend, because the phone's off. Or, Instagram is off, so someone can ring me if they want to, or they can text me. But Instagram, which is where my addiction lies with it, that the space from that it has been transformational.
Yeah.
In terms of being present.
And what you're doing there is so good because you're gently pushing back against the war for your attention that people are being paid a lot of money for. Harvard study, 2010, they found that 47% of the time we're not thinking about the thing that we're doing. So half of our lives, we're not focused, we're not present. That's a lot of time, yeah? And they found that the more distracted we are, the less happy we are. It's a fact. So the more you're getting sucked into those apps, the more you're not really listening to the people that you care about the most, the more your mind is elsewhere when someone is trying to share something important with you, the less happy you're going to be. And as a result, the less happy the people around you will be, And that's not to make people feel bad. It's just to help people feel aware. Now, interesting enough, in that study, there were 3 things that kept people more present than anything else. There was exercise, as something intimately. Obviously, there's lots of reasons why exercise helps us feel good, but one of those things is that we tend to be more present when we do it. We tend to be in the moment a bit more. Second thing was a really good conversation. Do you ever have a great chat with a best buddy, a good old belly laugh? They're really special moments. We tend to be present. And the third thing is making love. So if you take nothing else from this conversation, if you want to be more present and happier in your life, put on your sneakers, run down to your best friend's house and make love to them, okay? Do it today, Karl.
It's been great catching up. I love it when we catch up. Thank you so much for coming in. I think people have got a huge amount from that. Obviously, the book is out. It'll be nationwide and another bestseller, I am absolutely sure, because people are busy and wrecked and looking for solutions to that.
Well, thank you for your confidence. I just hope that people get something from it, because I certainly did. I spent the guts of a year researching busyness, and it really opened my mind to the world that we're living in, and that, like I said, a lot of our busyness is not our fault, but there are simple things that we can do every day to really help us escape that overwhelm.
Dermot Whelan, thank you very much for coming in. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Karl.
Folks, I really hope you enjoyed today's episode of Real Health with me, Karl Henry. As ever, you know where we are, at Karl Henry PT on Instagram, realhealth@independent.ie, and on the Irish Independent website. Don't forget to rate and review, and we'll see you next week for more Real Health. Slán go fóill.